Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, episode number 171, Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, the classic 1968 fantasy film starring Dick Van Dyke and Sally Ann Hounds. With me tonight to discuss this film back from 1960s is my friend, my co-host, and the one and only protected Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Thank you, Roy. How you feeling?
I'm better. I'm definitely better than I was last week, but I'm still not 100%. I'm just I'm drained. I'm tired, but I'm
So this is the special COVID edition of Roy's Tie-Dye.
Yeah. I'd like to say I'm trying to stay positive, but unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. I'm trying to stay positive, and unfortunately, I still am positive.
Yeah. Well, at least you've got your sense of humor.
Yeah, that's about all I got. And so, how you doing, Ross?
Oh, I don't have COVID, but at least now you're down to my level, so it'll be an entertaining show.
Yeah, folks, Ross is going to be leading the show tonight. It's his energy level is going to be.
Yeah. And tonight's Christmas Devil movie will be.
Ross is taking over the channel, and he's up as we speak, folks. We've gone from Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang to Santa Claus versus the Devil and the Easter Bunny all at the same time.
Here we go.
Here we go. Hold on to the roller coaster ride.
So is anybody? Do we have anybody even out there at this point? Does anybody even care about this? This was supposed to be our special holiday edition of Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang for Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah,
we had to keep postponing because of
migraines, and
ill fortune.
Yeah,
and so forth. But
well, to answer your question, the Hague is out there, and he's saying hello out there. John, welcome. Thanks for being out there. John is joining us from Pennsylvania. Colin is joining us from the UK. Welcome, Colin. Thanks for being out there. And Jenny is also joining us. She's joining us from Australia. Welcome, Jenny. She's saying, "Oh, you pretty chitty bang bang, hi owl."
Sing it, Roy.
I can't sing. Christian's giving us the thumbs up of hello. So Christian is joining us from Canada.
Welcome, Christian. Yeah.
It's always good to see everybody out there. Martin is joining us from New York. Welcome, Martin. Good to see you there as well. Thanks for the well wishes, Colin. Much appreciated. Liz is out there as well from the UK. Welcome, Liz. Good to see you out there. Colleen is joining us, and she said, "Look, it's Roy's evil twin."
Absolutely, I was absolutely thinking that. And you should have seen some of the messages that were flying back and forth before the show. It definitely is Evil Roy. It's definitely the mirror universe.
What are you saying, Ross? Tracy. Oh boy.
In the mirror universe, Roy makes me laugh.
Jenny is saying, "Heaven help us." Jeff Rubel's joining us. He's saying, "Hey folks, time for Ross Conquers the Martians." Oh no. Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny. Yeah, that's what he's gearing up for, Martin. You just called it.
One of them, but Roy nixed it, so I'm trying to get another one on here. But I don't think he's going for that one either.
I snapped him in half like a number 2 pencil.
Yeah. The other one's not that bad a movie, though.
Yeah, okay. Now you're getting nasty.
Sure.
Sherry's out there. Hey, hon. She says, "Hey, guys, my dad and I say hi from Disney. Feel better, hubby." Thanks, hon. And here, in regards to that, here's my 2014 Disney mug, and that was the last time Sherry and I were in Disney together. So there we go.
Yeah, they need your plug, Roy. Disney's thanking you right now.
Oh, I'm sure they are, Ross.
That's why we're doing Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang.
It wasn't even a Disney movie.
The anti Mary Poppins.
Christian is saying, "It's funny you chose this film. I just bought the DVD a few weeks ago." Oh, see, we're in sync, Christian. We're
for about the third time in the last few weeks. Yeah.
Hey, and Eva's out there. Hey, welcome, Eva. She's saying, "Happy Sunday. This is one of my absolute favorites." Oh, very cool, Eva. And she's also saying, so glad you're feeling better, Roy. Thanks, Eva. Yeah, I'm on the mends. Colin is saying the child catcher is the star of this film, by the way. Yeah, the child, yeah, he's very funny. They do a really, really good job. And Jeff is commenting about love the COVID goatee or the COVID goatee. Man, it's gonna be a rough night. Let's see. Martin saying, well, as the song goes, we've got you too. And Lou is joining us from Rhode Island. Welcome, Lou. Good to see you out there. And Silent Night, Deadly Night. Good Christmas pick.
There you go.
Yeah, I was waiting for somebody to drop that.
Or Black Christmas. Yeah.
Jeff is saying, so Roy, shall we give Ross the booth? And is tonight's show having an intermission? Yeah.
Contract. Yes.
Yeah, no, actually, tonight's show is going to go a little faster, folks. We're gonna go through things a little bit. This will probably be one of our quicker episodes, just because. But yeah,
what I even prep for.
We'll definitely keep it under 3 hours. We won't be breaking any Nick Tate records tonight.
Yeah. I always cram for these things. It's like 2 hours before the show. It's like, oh, I guess I better watch. Better figure out what I'm going to say about the movie. So I start cramming for this, and then you say you're not feeling well. So it's like, okay, we'll postpone. So I put my notes away. Now I can't even find them. It's like I have no idea. I forgot the movie. What was this movie about? I'm scribbling furiously.
And then 2 weeks later, we do it again.
Yeah. Right. We kept pushing it back. So now it's been something like 9 days since we were going to originally do the show. So we'll see what I remember about Chitty-Chitty.
Did you go back and rewatch it, Ross?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't either. That's okay.
I didn't. I remember it fairly.
Hey, I see that our YouTube watcher is out there, Urko 2005. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
It's Muttley.
What's that? It's Muttley. Is that what you
Muttley.
said?
See him in the profile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Hague is saying, yeah, we believe you. And Jenny's saying flying off a cliff.
Every one of our shows is like flying off a cliff. Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, and Jeff Rubel is saying,
right.
Ross, a Bond film with a Bond girl named Truly Scrupulous.
Yeah. It is. Well, it is possible that Roald Dahl did that character name as a nod to the Bond series. Yeah.
Hey, and I see Don is out there. Don Bethman. Don, welcome to the show. Don's joining us from Delaware this evening. Welcome. Thanks for making it. I know you couldn't make it last night. And Sherry says she likes the goatee. Thanks, hon. Yeah, it's the COVID tea. COVID tea. So let's talk about this film. Let's get started. And I promise not to sing, folks. If any singing is going to be done, Sherry will be singing in the audience, and it won't be me or Ross. Ross wants to sing, I'm sure. So there's the movie poster from Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, and what we always like to do is we always like to talk about references. I'm going to get right into it in regards to all roads leading to Star Trek. Well, not tonight, folks. All roads lead to James Bond with this movie. And there were a lot of connections with that. And Ian Fleming being the one, because he was the writer. Albert Broccoli, who was the producer for Broccoli. Gert Frobe.
Well, who knows? Maybe he said it Broccoli.
I was trying not to desecrate his name, because that's what
maybe he says it like that. I don't know. I always said broccoli, but it could be broccoli.
Yeah, I always did say broccoli too, but I just
it's Italian. Maybe it's broccoli.
Maybe. Gert Frobe. Now he's German. Am I pronouncing?
Yeah, probably with the E. Yeah, Frobe.
And then, as everybody remembers him, he was Goldfinger from the 1964 classic James Bond film.
Right.
And then also we have Desmond Llewellyn, who was obviously Q. He played the role of Q from the second James Bond film, which was one of my favorites, which was From Russia with Love. So
these are only a few.
Yes,
of the probably at least a dozen Bond connections in this movie. That I'm not going to throw them all out now, but as I think of them, I can add them. But yeah, definitely a lot of Bond crossover in this movie.
Oh yeah, Yeah, definitely. Colleen, sing, sing, sing. Yeah, yeah. Colleen and I love to sing. Colleen, friend from the theater. Martin saying, Sherry, there's no shower scenes in this movie.
Oh,
Sorry.
what about Posh? Yeah, you
Yeah,
had
that's true.
Grandpa Potts and taking the dip.
Yeah, that could count.
That's the shower scene.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's call the whole thing off. There you go.
Oh, man. Getting really silly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this honestly, for me, growing up, now this film came out in 1968, so it's part of our youth in the sense that this was one of those films, and Ross and I, what we like to do is around for like Black Friday, I'll say, the Friday right after Thanksgiving, we started doing a tradition. I think we kicked it off with the Star Wars holiday special, God help us.
Yeah.
And we've just kind of gone from there. But we like to celebrate with the holiday movies that are shown, and it's a great way to go into the season. So with this film, this was something that used to be shown in the 1970s a lot, back when it, of course, was ABC, CBS, NBC. I mean, the major networks were always the key players. It's not like now where you've got 2,000 channels if you just go to your cable box and you just hit the switch. But back in the day, it was a privilege to be able to see these movies at this time of the year because it was a celebration of the holidays. And it was something that they would show all the time. And this was when I actually was introduced to this film. Did you see this around that same time, Ross?
Yeah. It absolutely. It's just like it's like how parents put kids in front of the TV as a babysitter kind of thing. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, the holiday meal would be over. The parents would be sitting around the dining room table, or they'd be in the kitchen or whatever. And then the kids would drift off to whatever corner of the house where the TV was. And they'd watch Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang or Wizard of Oz or Willy Wonka. And this was definitely in that rotation.
Right.
Or the Kongathon, I guess, if you lived in the New York area. If you lived in the WOR area.
Right.
But believe it or not, I don't think I've ever seen this all the way through, this movie. I think it was the first time I saw it all the way through. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw, I was a little too young at that point. Willy Wonka I saw in the theater because it was just a couple of years later, 3 years later. But this is the first time I think I've seen it all the way through. How about you?
No, I had never seen this movie all the way through. See, here's the thing for me, and I really was not a big fan of musical movies during the 70s. And even in the 80s, it just was not my forte. I mean, as we know, sci-fi guy, into all that stuff. Not to say that I didn't like dramas and, comedies and different things, but anytime there was a story or plays, musicals, it just was something that I just really didn't get into, especially if a musical was turned into a movie, or if a movie was just made with the songs. And this was something that was very popular in the 50s, especially in the 60s, and then it started to wind down. Mm-hmm. So when these type of movies would be on, if my parents had it on, more my mom than my dad, because my dad really wasn't into this. My dad is a boxing fan, is a football fan, more the sports orientated. My mom really enjoyed these type of films, and if it was on, I would probably be watching it then. And I was somebody that would love to play with my Legos. I would just keep myself entertained with doing that. And if something like this was on in the background, I'd be like looking up at the TV, kind of like you were saying, you're just doing your thing and self-entertaining myself. But during the holidays, if this was on, I probably caught parts of it, but my interest level just was not to the point that it probably would be. Now, fast forward like 100 years later, because we're in our 50s now, I have more of a appreciation. I have an appreciation for live theater, going to the theater, the music, and even seeing movies in which they did this type of storyline. I can enjoy it. It's not something I'm going to watch over and over again, but it's something that I can take in and it'll make me smile. It's just kind of crazy how things, kind of change.
Yeah. I mean, and that's even though I hadn't seen it all the way through, I had seen so many of the scenes, but I didn't know what order everything was in. So it was really interesting to see it this time. Say, oh well, that's how this fits into the story, because it was so wackadoodle. It's like, how did the second half of the movie fit into the first half of the movie? But now I understand,
right,
how the whole thing plays out. Yeah, it's like, how's this child catcher fit in with?
yeah, and it was really, really done well. And in Dick Van Dyke, very super talented. I mean, again, growing up, loving to watch the reruns of all those shows that were on WPIX, or if they run Channel 5, and they would show the Dick Van Dyke Show. They would show all the comedies, I Dream of Jeannie, and so on and so forth. And he was a genius with his comic timing. And of course, he did this Mary Poppins. That was another huge movie of that time with Julie Andrews. And it's along this caliber. In fact, I believe they even wanted to try to get Julie Andrews for this movie, and she turned it down, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. There would have been no Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang without Mary Poppins, because basically it was Broccoli's dream, his ambition to make a second Mary Poppins, and therefore he tried to harvest as much of the talent that was in Mary Poppins into this movie.
Yeah,
all the behind the scenes people were involved with Mary Poppins, and Dick Van Dyke, of course. And as you say, he wanted Julie Andrews, but she turned it down. So they got Sally Ann Howes, who replaced Julie Andrews in My Fair Lady on Broadway. So she was the next best thing, I guess. So they got her.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought she was wonderful in this movie. I thought she was beautiful. I thought she just handled the part with a lot of grace, and it really worked out well. I mean, I thought in regards to that. I'm just going to go to the comments real quick. Martin is saying, I went to the cinema to see this film. The Hague is saying, I love musicals when they end. Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Do you remember? Been repeated so many times over the years. Yeah, hard to avoid, right?
Yep.
I don't know if it was the same, because you went to school across the river, but they had on our side of the river, they constantly subjected us to Oliver. It's like whenever there was a, as you get to the end of the school year and they're out of stuff to teach, it's like, okay, let's show Oliver. It's like, I saw Oliver so many times in school.
Yeah, I only probably saw that once. Sherry said, you fell in love with me. You fell in love with musicals when you saw me play Rizzo in Grease in the 90s. Yeah, Sherry did a very great job with that.
Well, now I can handle. Let's see. He didn't have an English accent. Yeah. He took a lot of heat for playing Bert with the so-called Cockney accent in Mary Poppins. Yeah.
Christian.
I guess you didn't see Mary Poppins Returns.
No.
It was just out a couple of years ago. Dick Van Dyke was 92 years old. He gets up on a desk and starts cutting the rug.
Did he really?
It was amazing. Yeah. They just took it to the next level. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah,
it's interesting story. I actually got to see Dick Van Dyke live. I went to back in, when was it? It was in April of 2016. Barbara Bain actually received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Mm-hmm. And for folks out there that are, it's like a huge fundraiser, and the Chamber of Commerce will select so many people from submissions for each year, and she was acknowledged for this, and this was done through fundraising from the fans and everything, and it was a wonderful experience, and she was super appreciative too. And what happened was, all of her fans that were, and Barbara Bain, obviously, Mission Impossible, Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Space 1999, of course, and 3-time Emmy winner. She was there, and she had 2 of her closest friends accompanying her that were sharing stories. And one of them was Dick Van Dyke, and then the other person was Ed Asner. Mm-hmm. And it was wonderful to hear the different stories. Now, she had actually appeared on the Dick Van Dyke Show as his former girlfriend before Laura Petrie, who was Mary Tyler Moore. And they were just kind of talking about that. But at the time, I mean, Dick Van Dyke, I believe this month is going to be turning either 96, I think 97. And he would have been probably like 90, 91 years old. And he was as vibrant, as sharp as anything. And he was there to support her and everything. And it was very, very, it was a lot of fun to watch. And and Barbara Bain was very appreciative of her fans too. I just want to put that out there, which was really nice.
He's got to have really good genes. But then again, being a dancer, song and dance man, I mean, he's taken care of himself despite the fact that he's lived such he's subjected his body to a lot of stuff. I mean, you have people like Ian Fleming who did the same thing, except he dropped dead in his 50s. But then you have Dick Van Dyke, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day while he's making this movie and, getting liquored up and everything. And he's fine. He's 96. He's healthier than I am at this point.
Well, and it's like you just said too, a lot of it definitely can be genes. It's just, it's the luck of the draw. I mean, some people are more susceptible than others. And, some people don't smoke a day in their life and then they get lung cancer. And then there's others, they can smoke until they're 100 and then, they never get it.
Right.
It's just crazy.
And he was in his 40s when he made this. I mean, when he's doing those dance numbers, that's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. I mean, the energy level and everything, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Dennis Chevalier is out there. Dennis, welcome to the show. Dennis is joining us from Canada. He's saying, hi, everyone. Chitty, 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 boom, boom. Christian made a comment. He said, same here, Roy. Musicals are not my favorites unless the screenplay is strong. Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of preference. John said, I love watching my parents step on the Legos. John, I sense a tremor in the force. I sense anger. Let me see here. Catching up on some of the comments. Warren saying Julie Andrews was probably doing The Sound of Music. She might have been. Well, The Sound of Music was 1965, if I remember correctly.
That was my grandmother's favorite movie.
Sound was it really?
Yeah.
And Linda's joining us. Linda, joining us from Canada. Welcome. She's saying, looking forward to tonight's show, refreshing my memory. I think I saw it back in the 80s, but don't remember much about it. Yeah. And Jenny's saying Dick Van Dyke was not originally a dancer. Look up the story about tearing his hamstring while doing the number Toot Sweets. Ooh.
Yeah. He never warmed up, apparently.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? He injured himself doing that, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him that he had this advanced arthritis, and that if he didn't have the surgery, he was going to be in a wheelchair basically. Wow. In a couple of years. He said within 5 years you're going to be in a wheelchair, you're not going to walk again. I had a doctor tell me the same thing, like when I was in I don't know, I was a kid. I was like early teens or something like that. I'm fine. So much for that. Me and Dick Van Dyke, we're still cutting rugs.
There's that connection, Ross.
Yeah. Well, he may not have been a dancer, but he was he's an entertainer. I mean, he and plus he was very nimble. He admired Buster Keaton and Stan Laurel, so he had a very physical, style of comedy.
Oh, absolutely. I want to welcome Jeff Curley. Jeff, welcome to the show. Jeff is joining us from Texas. Good to see you out there, Jeff. I hope you had a nice weekend. Hope everybody's had a nice weekend so far. Yeah, well, I was just saying too, Jeff, this was not a movie that I personally had seen from beginning to end, nor had Ross prior to before that we actually decided we were going to do this movie. So we kind of geared up for that.
Is that our disclaimer?
That's our disclaimer, yeah. John is saying I was supposed to have a hip replacement in my 40s. I'm now 55, still no hip replacement.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you'll never be hip, John. Yeah.
And Christian is commenting, I remember Dick Van Dyke in a dramatic role from the 70s in a TV movie about an alcoholic. He was brilliant. They say when an actor does comedy, he can do it all. I don't think the rule applies to everyone. Interesting, Christian, about that. I remember him distinctly doing an episode of Columbo, and he was the murderer. And in fact, it was the episode that co-starred Antoinette Bauer. If folks from classic Star Trek, she was Sylvia in Cat's Paw, played his wife, and he murdered her. But it's interesting too, because a lot of times you get to see an actor's range when they do different types of styles of acting, because I mean, you're going from almost like a different, I don't want to say genre, but you're a different, it's a different compartment of acting, so to speak. If you're making the transition, going from comedy to drama, and comedy really is about timing. And I give a lot of credit to the folks that make it look so easy, because the fact that they make it look easy is quite an ability to be able to do that. And Dick Van Dyke being one of them, because if your timing is off, I always thought John Ritter was great. I always enjoyed him, watching him, and he did drama as well too.
Mm. Yeah, I was surprised to see him turn up in Sling Blade. I don't know if you ever saw that.
No.
With Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Bob Thornton's only good movie. I thought Billy Bob Thornton was going to be the next Orson Welles, and then he just squandered his career making playing Bad Santa. There's a movie for us. That'll be our Christmas movie, Roy.
Ross is really trying to gear us up, folks.
Trying to wind you up. Yeah, he did a movie. Dick Van Dyke did a movie called The Comic that I think Carl Reiner was involved with. Which he was also involved with the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is also, The Comic was a dramatic film that dealt with a lot of, demons like alcoholism and so forth. It was a serious film. What do they call that? Comedy drama or what have you. So. Yeah, his heyday seemed to have been for motion pictures seemed to be the 60s.
Yeah,
Dick Van Dyke. He came from stage, from Bye Bye Birdie, and did the film. And Mary Poppins was an enormous success, and that's what they were trying. They're trying to capture lightning in a bottle is what they're trying to do with this one, and trying to recreate Mary Poppins. So yeah, the two big influences. I would say are, as you say, Ian Fleming and the whole James Bond thing, and Mary Poppins. Ian Fleming wrote this kids book, actually a trilogy of kids books, Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, and Broccoli originally was not going to. He wasn't very terribly impressed with the books, and in fact, they didn't appear until posthumously. As I said, Ian Fleming died fairly young. He had a series of heart attacks, and they were based on stories that he told his son about this magic car, this flying car, what have you. And it's funny how that works, because the same thing with the Hobbit grew out of J.R.R. Tolkien's telling his son stories. And I think A Wind in the Willows is another one. Kenneth Grahame. Telling his kids' stories. So they write these things down. And they become kind of these immortal children's classics. But, when Broccoli saw the book, he said, this is not anything I really want to make into a movie. But then Mary Poppins came out and said, oh, wait, I have this idea that we can do Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang as a musical. You were talking about James Bond connections. And it turns out that either by way of James Bond or Ian Fleming himself, a lot of people involved with this movie were connected to Bond and to Fleming. James Robertson Justice, who always plays, like an authority figure. He did the voiceover, and I think he has one scene in Guns of Navarone where he's like telling them they got to go blow up the Nazi guns or whatever. He actually worked with Ian Fleming when they were Fleming was working for the newspaper at a point. They were Reuters. They were both journalists at Reuters, so he knew him through that. Roald Dahl was a personal friend of Ian Fleming. He knew him during the war. Boy, Roald Dahl's biography. If anybody is interested in a crazy life, you should read up on him. He had quite a experience during the war and the RAF and all kinds of personal drama in his life. But I'm sure we'll come up with other things as we go along.
The Bond connection was very, very strong and very prevalent in this film.
Yeah, Anna Quayle, who played Gert Froba's wife, the Empress, or whatever she was, Duchess, or whatever she was in the movie. She was in the Casino Royale, the Bond parody. that was made back in the 60s, which, by the way, the director, Ken Hughes, had a hand in. He was one of the, 5 or 6 directors that were involved in that movie. So, there's all,
the Woody Allen, the
John Huston was one of the directors. Yeah, Woody Allen was one of the Bonds. David Niven,
that's the other one I was trying to think of. There was like 4 or 5 Bonds, I think, in that film.
Yeah, and the Tijuana Brass.
Hey, Lou is commenting. He's saying, once Leno got a hold of the original car from the movie and had it parked outside the studio one night when Dick Van Dyke was the guest, he and Dick go outside to see it, and he seemed less than impressed. It was like, great, let's go back inside. Oh, man.
Well, you know who owns the car now?
No.
Peter Jackson owns the car.
Of course he does. Speaking of Tolkien, right?
Yeah. So the prime, because I think there were like 6 or 7 Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bangs that they built for the movie, but the fully functional one, which I don't know if it flies or not, but the one that they drive around in, it's in New Zealand right now. It's in Peter Jackson's garage.
Well, it's funny, and I don't want to start rumors on here because I would hate to do that, but I'm gonna defer because all roads lead to Space 1999. Eagle 1, which is the 44-inch model, that the original studio model. There's 3 of them. There's Eagle 1, Eagle 2, and Eagle 3. Eagle 1 was just recently auctioned off within the year, and it was auctioned off for, I think it was over $100,000. I don't remember the exact amount. Folks out there that are fans will jump in and comment on it. But the rumor is, nobody knows for sure who got it, but the rumor is that it might be Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
Yeah. Yep. That's the rumor.
See, this is what happens when you throw your money at Lord of the Rings. You're paying. It's just like George Lucas when he turned. Yeah. It's like Star Wars. Everybody went to see Star Wars 30 times, and then George turned into a lunatic too. So.
But true story on that. So yeah.
Everybody goes all Howard Hughes as soon as they get a lot of money. You know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get the original Eagle, and I'm going to get my Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, and I'm going to play with it.
Well, hey, here's a plug, and I'll do the plug before we do the shout out. So Eagle 2 is owned. It's owned by the owner's Andrew Frampton, and he lives in the UK. Now, Eagle 3 is actually owned by Darren Peterson, who is in Canada. And there's going to actually be a convention that's going to be going on. It's going to be in April, the end of April, and in Calgary. So there's going to be information about that. And that Eagle, for the first time, is going to be available to be seen in person. So just want to put that out there, folks. Just passing the news. We talked about this yesterday. So I'm all out of sorts. It's the COVID fog, folks. So don't mind me.
Yeah. The scary thing is so far, I don't think the show's any different than it usually is.
Ooh, Spock. Ross is trying to get back from the comments that we had off the air. I needed a good laugh. Hey, I see that Jerry is joining us. Jerry Seward wasn't a name for James Bond. Mr. Kiss Bang Bang?
Kiss Bang Bang. A lot of time they describe those movies as kind of Kiss Bang Bang. I don't know if James Bond specifically, but could be.
Could be. Yeah. And Dennis Chevalier. We got the Eagle Love.
Eagle Love. I saw an eagle today.
Did you?
Yeah, it was eating a deer carcass next to the road.
I knew you were going to say that.
Bald eagle.
Nice.
It's like, oh boy, I caught the bald eagle in an embarrassing situation here. Our national bird feasting on the carcass of a deer next to but that's what they do. They're scavengers.
Yeah.
In part.
So. Well, I'm sure Sherry's going to jump in and comment on that, Ross, because she's is an avid birder. And actually, she was birding today down in Florida. Yeah. There we go.
I also saw a wild turkey today.
Did you really?
Yeah, not out of the bottle either.
and Jeff Rubel's got my back. Roy just needs a few more medications now. Anyway, so let's throw a few images up from this movie just to remind our viewers. So here we go. And there's the car.
There it is. Is that Peter Jackson behind the wheel?
No.
No. Okay. Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Caractacus Potts, which is funny. It's kind of a play on crackpot, if you think about it.
Yeah. Right.
Caractacus Potts. I think that's what Roald Dahl was going for anyway. Caractacus, I only know this because I'm a classical music guy, and Edward Elgar wrote a cantata, Caractacus, about the first century, British warlord who held off the Roman invasion. So, and also there's a line in Pirates of Penzance. The Major General knows every detail of Caractacus's uniform. So I said, Caractacus Potts. I know who Caractacus is. You don't have to be a history major to know Caractacus. So there you go. So Dick Van Dyke, and he was. It was interesting because we just did Back to the Future a few weeks ago, and he kind of reminded me of a Doc Brown type inventor. How none of his inventions really work,
right?
And even with the parallels, because Back to the Future starts and they show Doc Brown's like breakfast machine, how it makes the coffee and and all this other stuff, and feeds Einstein, puts the dog food in the bowl and stuff. And it was kind of like this at the beginning of the movie here with the broken eggs and how nothing was quite functioning the way it should.
That's actually, you're right, Russ. The correlation with that's so true. Yeah. And what's really crazy is there's only like a 17-year difference between those two movies too.
That is insane,
isn't it?
Yeah, I know, because just being a kid at the time, it's several lifetimes. Right. But now 17 years like this, yeah,
it's nothing. Sherry said, yes, I saw the elusive red-headed woodpecker, and Ross is right about the eagle.
There you go.
Colin saying I had a dinky model of the car in the 1970s. Oh, very cool. And Christian said, not cold turkey.
Not cold turkey. Not for me or Dick. Yeah.
And Martin said, I once shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got into them, I don't know.
Now, did they reiterate that in this movie? Because, that's the old Marx Brothers, the Groucho Marx, Captain Spaulding joke. And I think they used it in this movie, too, didn't they? I did, because I just heard it somewhere again. Unless it turned up in the Avengers or something. I've been watching a lot of the Avengers TV episodes.
Yeah.
I just heard it again somewhere. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if he's quoting from this movie or not, but it's an old joke. Groucho did it, as he did everything.
Randy Lee's joining us. Randy, welcome to the show. And Randy is also joining us on YouTube tonight. Thanks for being out there, Randy. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Martin saying, yes, they did. So
they did quote it in here. Yeah.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah. Sometimes these things get jumbled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so what do you want to talk about here?
So actually, I just want to, going on to the next slide. How about the, somebody was making the comment earlier as far as the kid snatchers. That guy,
the child catcher. Yeah.
He really stole the show, huh?
Yeah. No, Robert Helpman. It turns out he was a world famous ballet dancer. He was involved with the Vic Wells Ballet with Margot Fonteyn and he was also, beyond that, he was an actor. He worked as an actor with the old Vic. He toured Australia with Katharine Hepburn, where they did Shakespeare plays. He is Australian. He was born there, and he went back. He managed the Australian Ballet. At the time he was doing this film, he was the director, or maybe co-director of the Australian Ballet. He eventually became, the full-fledged artistic director. But yeah, so he was a dancer, and you see a lot of that in his movements in the movie. He's very graceful and very, every movement. Like when he doesn't just walk down the street. He kicks his legs out as he walks, and he really had quite the characterization.
I get the feeling they really had a good time making this movie. It just seemed like it was a fun. I mean, I didn't come across anything where it wasn't, but there's a lot of times you can see. I mean, you can't. I mean, obviously it's work, but it really looked like there was enjoyment. It was flowing. It seemed pretty natural, and it just seemed to come across through the screen.
Now, if you've ever seen The Red Shoes or The Tales of Hoffman, the Powell Pressburger movies, Helpman had a lot to do with those also. Yeah, he also played kind of creepy characters in those movies too. One thing I wanted to say about that, it must have been an extra or something. I saw it on YouTube, so it must have been a bonus on the DVD or something, where Dick Van Dyke was talking about at a point when the child catcher takes off with the kids and he's flying along in that rickety carriage. I don't know if you saw this anecdote, but as they rounded the corner, the carriage started to roll over. And he said, "Oh my God, he's a goner. He's going to get smashed by this thing." But Helpman, he was so graceful. He just kind of got up and he stepped on the edge of the seat and stepped on the wheels. The thing turned over and just stepped onto the curb as the thing just, turned to, was dashed to splinters. Dick said, "Yeah, did you see
catch that? No,
and Dick said that he was not a young man. He was like 60 at the time, but he just kind of like stepped off the thing and just kind of like, ta-da."
He kind of caught himself.
Yeah.
Did you say he wasn't young, Ross? I mean, we're not that far off from that.
I know. Well, this is what Dick Van Dyke said. And he's 96, so I'm just repeating.
Yeah, there you go.
What he said. I'm sure I would have handled it exactly the same way.
Oh, that's good though.
Yeah.
Martin commented, this movie was shot in England, France, and Germany. Yeah. I did catch that in the end credits where they were saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, the visuals were beautiful, absolutely gorgeous.
And the last thing about the child catchers, that seems to be what everybody remembers from the movie. Yep. It really, when you're a kid, that really gets into your
scary
consciousness. Yeah. As far as the scope of the movie and the locations and what have you, I was very surprised to go back and watch it and realize they shot it at Mad Ludwig's castle in Bavaria. The castle that they modeled the Walt Disney castle on, the Sleeping Beauty castle they have right in the middle of, that was where they shot it. Yeah, not at Walt Disney, not at Disney World, but at the actual castle. And I said, "Oh my God, it's Mad Ludwig of Bavaria's." This is castle, was it Neuschwanstein or whatever, the new Swanstone castle.
It was very imposing.
Yeah, but it was actually built fairly late. It was like built in the 1860s or something like that. It's not a medieval castle. It's a kind of a supposed to emulate that. It's supposed to recreate that, because Mad Ludwig was a big Wagner nut. He was a big Wagner fan, and he actually was a patron. Like, he and Wagner were close, so he wanted to kind of remodel his castle to represent these German medieval myths that Wagner was treating in his operas at the time. So he modeled the whole castle on what he believed, would be a castle that would be in Lohengrin. In fact, the name of the castle, that Neue Schwanstein, the new Swanstone castle, is named for Lohengrin. Was the night of the swan. He arrives on a swan boat and what have you. So yeah, it's funny how it goes from Wagner to Walt Disney to Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, which is kind of a funny slight on the part of Broccoli, because not only did he steal the whole Mary Poppins crew to make this movie, but he also stole Walt Disney's castle. Because it's part of the Disney logo. Remember when he had the magical world, the wide world of Disney or what have you, and they would always have the castle at the beginning?
Yep, absolutely.
It's part of the whole identity of Disney, and here it is in Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang.
Yeah, and it's represented to this day. I mean, Disney World is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year too, right now.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Broccoli thumbing his nose, I think, at Disney was using the actual location in his movie.
It's kind of an irony.
What is it?
It's kind of an irony. It's kind of an irony.
Oh yeah. And it's fun, Bill. I mean, we haven't talked about the music. I know you like to save it for the end, but it's hard to do that when you're talking about a musical.
Well, this is a musical, so to be fair, we can definitely jump in and just hold that thought real quick. I'm just going to share some of the comments. Deborah is joining us from Phillipsburg. Deborah, thanks for joining us and thanks for being out there. Hope you're having a good weekend. Jenny commented, the child catcher scared the willies out of my kids. Yeah, I mean, very, very imposing, very, very scary character. Don is saying some of the most gorgeous backgrounds I've ever seen in a movie. Yeah, amazing. The landscape for this film. Totally agree, Don. Jenny is also saying, yes, Nakwashantan, very beautiful inside and out. Oh, very cool that you got to see it too. Oh. Colleen is saying, my favorite part was the love song between the antagonists. Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
It really, really was. And it was just coordinated and everything. And again, I'm not like a musical type of person, but it was fun to watch, and they really handled it. I mean, it was pure professionalism.
Yeah.
Martin is saying, wasn't the studio shots were shot at Pinewood?
Yeah, like the interiors of the castle were shot at Pinewood, but the exteriors were at the actual castle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Disney lost his head over this. Yeah.
That's what John is saying. Yeah.
I mean, look, the cast was great. I mean, you had all kinds of like throwaway. You had Robert Heltman as the child catcher. You had Benny Hill turns up as the toy maker.
Benny Hill did a great job in this movie. I was just going to here we go. There he is.
Yeah, and there's the child catcher right behind him there.
Yep.
You had Stanley Unwin turns up as the Chancellor. I mean, all these like kind of throwaway appearances in this film. It was really a rich movie in terms of trying to catch all the appearances by all the actors. Yeah, some of them even just basically essentially cameos. Oh, and of course Lionel Jeffries was fabulous as the grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
His grandpa Potts. I mean, he was a scene stealer in this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, he wasn't on very long, but he was. Hey, I want to say hi to Janet Servant. Janet, welcome. Great to hear that you're out there, and hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice weekend. And it's been such a long time since got to say hello. So just thanks for stopping by.
It was the Benny Hill Show. There you go.
Yeah.
Cue yakety sax.
Barbara Windsor was in this film. Martin is saying.
And Lionel Jeffries was really, he played Dick Van Dyke's dad, but he's really 6 months younger than Dick Van Dyke, which I find fun.
Yeah. Sean Connery and Harrison Ford being so close in age.
Right. You hear that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Where an actress plays somebody's mother and she's really 3 years older than him or what have you. Like Angela Lansbury and Manchurian Candidate with Lawrence Harvey or it's just one of those things. And Lionel Jeffries just happened to be bald, and it's like, sure, he's his dad, but he's younger than him.
Janet just saying, not my favorite musical, but the stars are great. The musical movie was too long.
Yeah, it's funny because there were some very good songs in the movie. There were there were definitely some top drawer things in here, but a lot of the songs, you felt like they could have. If you felt like some of them were like the B-side for Mary Poppins, like you could have the hit song on side A, and then you'd flip it over, and it would be one of the songs from Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang. Yeah, there were a few I would have cut out of the movie, but there's some good songs in it. And those, there are very few songs that make me laugh like the theme song. I don't even know what's funny about it, but it just busts me up every time they sing the damn thing. Yeah.
Colin is commenting back when the slightest thing didn't offend, because
it
was the theme song. I mean, could be Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang can mean a few things, but there's So anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
Well, Chitty-Bang-Bang was supposed to be a race car,
right? Exactly,
early race car, but I don't know if that's what he's talking about, but
it could just.
I'm sure there's some other things.
Claudia. Thanks, Claudia, and thanks for being out there. Appreciate your well wishes too. Martin is saying, "Poured out starboard home, posh."
right, posh. Great song. It's like part music hall, his character is part music hall and part, like Major General Stanley from Pirates of Penzance or something. It's like, and apparently the book. Now that's the other thing. I didn't read the book, which apparently were contemporary settings. They were set in the 60s, I guess, when he wrote them, but they put them in a historical setting in the movie. Setting in was it the 20s? Is that what it was? Or
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because the accident at the beginning is like 1908 or something, where the thing gets all burned out.
closer to the turn of the century at that time.
Yeah. So, that allowed them to have the grandfather who would have gone on, I don't know, maybe the Zulu campaign or something, that he would have been around at that point. And what was that? He had an outhouse or something that he was always going to. That seems like a very Roald Dahl thing, but apparently, Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay, but supposedly, it kind of gotten taken out of his hands. And this keeps happening to Roald Dahl because the same thing happened with Willy Wonka a few years later. But supposedly the director, Ken Hughes, rewrote a lot of the screenplay, and Roald Dahl was not happy. But he did a lot of work on it before he left. I totally forgot he wrote "You Only Live Twice," the screenplay for You Only Live Twice.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he didn't have any real experience as a screenwriter, but he got the job because he was friends with Ian Flemings.
And that was only that movie came out the year before. That came out in '67, and that was, if I remember correctly. In fact, that's the one that Yasko was affiliated with. Yasko was in that movie. She was in the opening titles, and she was in the opening part of that film. Colin is saying I meant my comment in regards to the Benny Hill show.
The Benny Hill show would never fly today.
No. And Christian said Benny Hill was also in The Italian Job, the original with Michael Caine, and between takes he wrote for his Benny Hill shows.
Yeah, that show was on forever. Benny Hill.
It was. Yeah.
I have no idea how far back it went because it was just always on here in the late 70s and through the 80s and what have you. But I think it went back to the 50s. His show. Did
it really? I didn't realize it went that far back.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew
he was the Doctor Who of comedy.
Yeah. Deborah's commenting saying military slang does get lewd. In the British Army, Chitty-Bang-Bang apparently came to refer to the permission slip that soldiers needed to leave the barracks to visit local brothels.
Yeah, there you go.
Very well said, Deborah.
Very well said. More, please. Yeah. But no, I was talking about Roald Dahl, and he's so well known for his kids' books, James and the Giant Peach and Matilda and the Witches and what have you. But, he wrote a lot of very disturbing stories for adults. And I think we must have been, we were talking about Willy Wonka. I was talking about the story that they adapted for the Alfred Hitchcock Presents with Steve McQueen and Peter Lorre.
Yep.
The Man from the South. Where they make the bet with the lighter. And if the lighter doesn't light so many times, they're going to chop off his fingers. Do you remember that episode?
It sounds familiar now that you're saying that.
Yeah, they remade it for the when they revived the series in the 80s, I remember. But yeah, what a disturbing story.
Hey, Paul Miller's joining us. Paul, welcome to the show. Good to see you. And Paul, I didn't get to say hi to you last night, so thanks for being out there last night as well. Paul is saying, I never felt even slightly naughty during Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang. And Janet and Deborah are laughing at that. Colin is saying, my memories of this film have never been soured by the knowledge.
Have now been soured. Yeah, there you go. Oh, boy. Yeah. Forget the child catcher.
Yeah, there we go.
But also, in addition, well, they apparently several of the Roald Dahl stories were adapted for Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and apparently Hitchcock directed one of them himself. I don't know if I've ever seen that one. But also he wrote, I worked with somebody who was a big Roald Dahl fan. He loved this book called My Uncle Oswald. And he's always talking about my Uncle Oswald. And I had a book business once, so I finally got my hands on a copy of My Uncle Oswald. It was just like, it was the worst piece of smut ever written. It's just like this vile sex comedy written by Roald Dahl. It's like, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is the guy who's writing Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So
Deborah just asked you, Ross. She said, Man from the South.
Man from the South, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing about Roald Dahl? Oh, yeah, he was married to Patricia Neal for some time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what's that? Day the Earth Stood Still? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
exactly. And I think we talked about this at some other point too. I don't know if it was about, when we talked about Willy Wonka or when we talked about Day the Earth Stood Still, but Patricia Neal suffered a series of strokes and she was debilitated basically. Yeah. And he gave her like some real tough love to get her through that and forced her to take another film project. And
it was actually in the Homecoming for the Waltons.
The Waltons. And one of the original screenwriters for this before Roald Dahl stepped in was Earl Hamner.
Oh,
who was the guy who wrote the Waltons, created the Waltons. He wrote the original story. Yeah. So there you go. All roads lead to the Waltons.
And Ralph Sinensky, who's been on this show, who directed classic Star Trek episodes, he directed a lot of the Walton episodes. And and it's great. It all interlinks, Ross. See, all roads led to Star Trek tonight, even though we didn't think it would.
So what else? What else you want to talk about, Roy?
Well, Ross, we should really probably, since, and I agree what you were saying, just because of the scope of this episode and what it is, the music leads right into it.
Oh yeah. And we're bringing this up early just because it's a musical and it all ties in. The Sherman Brothers, which Broccoli scooped from Disney. They were kind of like career Disney people. They did a lot of music for Disney. Jungle Book, Aristocats. Sorry, the Aristocats. Of course, Mary Poppins won their 2 Oscars for Mary Poppins. Chim Chim Cheree for Best Song, and just the whole largely original score for Mary Poppins. They won Oscars for that. They did Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And for projects that weren't Disney, they did. I didn't realize they did Snoopy Come Home. You remember that one?
Yep, I do.
Yeah, Snoopy Come Home and the Tom Sawyer musical with Johnny Whitaker. Do you remember that one?
Yes, in fact, it's funny you're talking about that because I was just talking about that movie not too long ago. When I was we were living in Wallington for kindergarten. I think it was kindergarten. It was probably 71. God help me. It was 51 years ago. Radio City Music Hall. We went in to see at Christmas time, and they were showing Huckleberry Finn, and Johnny Whitaker was in that. We used to hit the Radio City Music Hall sometimes around Christmas, but I didn't see that there. I did see Matilda with not the Roald Dahl Matilda, the one with the boxing kangaroo with Elliot Gould. Yep. Oh, geez, Elliot Gould. Wow.
Yeah, okay. And what was it? It was maybe Magic of Lassie, the one with James Stewart. I can't remember which Lassie movie it was. And the Sunshine Boys. I don't know how that one got in there, but we saw that one for. But I did see the Johnny Whitaker, Tom Sawyer in Wildwood, one summer, Wildwood, New Jersey. And it's funny to look back on it now because wrote the Sherman Brothers did the songs, but the guy who wrote the music for the movie was John Williams.
Oh,
pre-Star Wars, yeah.
John, and there was a sequel. It always seems to go back to John Williams.
Yeah. And there was a Huckleberry Finn after that too. Yeah.
Christian commented before, Hitchcock directed Vincent Price in one episode. I just can't believe it when I saw it the first time. It's very, very good. Janet made a comment. I have a problem with Hitchcock with that. I hear about Tippy.
Oh, yeah. That he kind of basically stalked and mistreated Tippy while making the birds. Yeah.
And Warren is out there. Warren, good to see you out there. He said Prince had a song called Tick, Tick, Bang. Just a bit of naughty innuendos there, Christian Lance. Christian. And Warren saying, I always did my maths homework while watching the Waltons. Yeah, as Eva was saying, Thursday nights, that was the thing to watch. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Right, exactly. Johnny Whitaker right there. Yeah.
And Paul saying, I saw Johnny Whitaker and H&R Puff and Stuff Hollywood review. Yeah.
Oh, was that a touring thing?
Might have been.
Or was that a special? I wonder what things really went around.
Didn't they do that with the Puff and Stuff? Well,
yeah.
Hollywood review. Weren't they at not the Radio City Music Hall? What was it? What's the other place in here? Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, right.
They used to do that all the time. I remember back in the 70s.
The soundtrack of our lives.
Yeah.
That would be horrifying to see the cast of Puff and Stuff in real life, or Oh, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, not Puffin stuff. I beg your pardon. I got a little freaked out there for a second.
Oh,
wait, what was he saying about? Wait, it was
Paul
on
saying it was
Broadway.
on Broadway. Yep.
Wow.
Wow. That had to be close to 50 years ago then, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Early 70s, Paul.
Right. And the Sherman Brothers, they also did the music for Charlotte's Web. You remember that?
Yeah.
The animated film.
Sure.
And, you know, as I said, they won their 2 Oscars for Mary Poppins. Their best known song is probably It's a Small World, After All.
Yep.
Which they wrote for the 1964 World's Fair, but was immediately absorbed by Disney into their theme park attraction.
Yes, in fact, I think I was just asking Sherry about that.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's the Sherman Brothers for you. and allegedly, you know, they've written more songs for the movies than any other team, which is saying something.
Oh, you know what? Janet just commented, and I forgot about this. Electric Company had Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was we've talked about this before too. There was a movie that Christopher Reeve did with Morgan Freeman. I think it was called Streetwise or something like that. I remember seeing the trailer for the thing, and it's wait a minute, that's the guy from Electric Company. What's going on here? Gritty R-rated movie. And that's the first time I realized that Morgan Freeman was really an actor. Yeah.
Paul said Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was just premiering. We had preview of them on stage.
Wow. There you go. I wonder if Billy Barty was in it.
That's crazy. Billy Barty. Oh my God. Disney will assimilate all.
Yeah, that's true. Even back then, John.
Yeah. Oh, Martin is saying Toot Sweet was also a toy made by Mattel in the 60s that molded Tootsie Rolls into whistles.
Oh, so who got there first, I wonder?
All the pop culture history here, folks.
Yeah. So the Sherman Brothers were nominated for 9 Academy Awards. They won twice, as I said, for Mary Poppins. Music director was Irwin Kostal. Now, this is a guy who always worked with the Sherman Brothers. He was an arranger. He was a conductor. He was he adapted other people's music. He worked with Leonard Bernstein on West Side Story. He helped. He orchestrated The Music Man for Broadway, but he did a lot of stuff for the movies too. And in fact, he worked on the West Side Story movie also, not the Spielberg one, but the Robert Wise one, the original one. Yep. He won an Oscar for best music scoring for his work on Sound of Music, even though it's Rodgers and Hammerstein. He did the arrangements for the movie. And much later on, I don't know if you remember when they re-released Fantasia, Disney Fantasia in the 80s.
Yes.
And they made a big deal about how they had the digital soundtrack and what have you for the first time. That wasn't Leopold Stokowski conducting on the soundtrack that time, but Irwin Kostal stepped in and had to match Stokey's tempos for the original Fantasia. And when they re-recorded it, he was the one that conducted the orchestra.
Ross, wasn't Fantasia done in the 30s?
1940.
Oh, it was okay. Yeah. That was close.
And that was a big deal. You know, they did a road show. Yeah, they had to go around to the different theaters and outfit them with special sound systems and everything. It was very cutting edge at the time. Kind of like Sense Around at the State.
Sense Around. Oh, man.
Only more so.
All those movies. You know, that's what we have to do. We'll have to, I mean, it's not so much sci-fi, but we'll have to, we should really go back and analyze some of the Sense Around films. And a lot of those were Irwin Allen movies too.
Right. Well, I think there were only 5 Sense Around movies in all. I mean, I think they had knockoff stuff, but I can't remember. There was
Towering Inferno.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember if Roller Coaster, definitely. Battlestar Galactica.
Earthquake.
Yeah. And I think there are 2 other Sense Around movies. I'm not sure. At one time they would just roll right off the top of my flat head, but now that you have COVID, I can't think of it.
Nice. Oh man, he is getting back at me for those offline comments. Hey, I'm just up. Eva commented earlier, Electric Company followed by Zoom.
By Zoom.
Yeah.
Come on and Zoom on Zoom. Oh, Billy Barty was there. Billy Barty's in the house. Wow.
And egg.
The
Paul said love was here, man. Peace and love, even though it's the 70s. Had these pre-war, Battlestar Galactica on,
right.
Blew my ears out. Loved it. Yeah, I mean that you felt that. I mean, yeah.
Midway
Was
you.
one.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Paul. Thank you.
I remember when that was at the State also, right? That's when the plaster started falling out of the ceiling at the State. The stop sense around then. Yeah.
Actually, Warren, we actually did get to see Battlestar Galactica in the theaters. I actually have the original. What was it that they gave out the promo book? That was actually at the movie theater. So normally you probably would be right, but we actually did, and it was those theaters were few and far between, but we got it. Poseidon, thank you, Janet.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but
she's saying the big movies were like Tower Inferno. Good for you, Roy.
Yeah. There was a movie called Hurricane. Yeah. And that was a big bomb.
Not to be confused with Bond.
Yeah. Was it Mia Farrow was in that, wasn't she? Mia Farrow?
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Was it early 70s?
I think mid 70s, maybe 70, 76, 77. Yeah, I remember the trailer for it, but it really got trashed. Yeah, and there was a lot of big talent involved with it, but I don't remember a heck of a lot about it. Yeah, that's the other thing. You mentioned something about
79, Ross, and it was Dino De Laurentiis, Lorenzo
Dino De Laurentiis. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the team that brought us Flash Gordon.
Right.
Yeah, right. And Max von Sydow was in it too.
Max von Sydow. Yeah.
So there you go.
So I want to ask here. You were talking about doing a movie. You said, "Oh, it's not really sci-fi." About this movie. Is this movie sci-fi or fantasy?
I think it's more fantasy. I personally think it's fantasy, but you could say with the flying car, I mean, that could kind of justify the sci-fi elements of it, especially for the time. But I think more, for me personally, it comes across more as a fantasy film, because when they actually, and trust me, folks, we're not going to the plot, but up until the point where they're actually spending and doing a picnic together and they're looking out at the sea, and then Dick Van Dyke is telling his kids about the story of the history of all this. To me, it shifts into like a fantasy type of realm, and he's trying to entertain the kids.
Right.
And that's where it goes in that direction. So really, you want to ask yourself, does the car really fly or doesn't it? You know what I mean? That's where it could be borderline. So I personally took it away as fantasy.
It's very interesting, because when it starts out, it could be considered sci-fi because he's the inventor and everything's about the science, even though they don't really go into too much into how things work. They do a little bit. But then, the whole second half of the movie takes this fantastic twist. But you realize it's his story. It's Dick Van Dyke's character's. It's Caractacus's story about the car.
Right.
It's all fantasy. None of that second half takes place. Right. Except I'm reading about it today, trying to brush up for the conversation since I totally forgot the movie. And I realized I learned that it was really an 11th hour decision to make that. Caractacus's story. Originally, that was part of that's how the story unfolded.
Oh, okay.
And they decided to make it into like a framing device where he starts telling the story. So, maybe the movie's different than we imagine. And at the end, you do have, outside of the bedtime story, fairy story aspect, you do have the car lifts off with Truly and Caractacus, and it's a metaphor, or is it? Is it their love and their new life, or did the car really fly?
Right. You could almost, and I'll equate it to, I'm having a problem thinking of the title of the film. It's the 1990 film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was where they're on Mars.
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
Isn't that ironic that you couldn't recall it? Yeah.
Yeah. COVID fog again. Was it a dream, or did it actually happen? And you go back and forth with that, where it's like as the events are unfolding halfway into the movie, it's everything is leading up to this fantasy that he's going to experience if he goes to the center, and then he gets implanted with these, or starts to have the implant with the memories, but then they say it never even took place. But did it or didn't it? And then the second half of the movie is going through that entire scenario, and then at the very end it's like, was this really a dream or was this reality? So you don't know.
I would very much like to see Philip K. Dick's Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang. Yeah, all of his fiction is about basically like that, about perception and what's reality, and
but it makes
realities.
And it makes it fun because it's you can go in so many different directions, and it's really not stated. I mean, it's up to the individual. So
and the mind altering substances
that go along with it.
They go along with it. Yeah.
Speaking of disaster movies. Martin is saying, talking about Terror Inferno, you could do that old Stand by Christmas movie, Die Hard. We've had that. We've actually had this.
We've had that conversation. Yeah, it ain't happening.
And neither is Attack of the Killer Bunnies and the evil.
Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny. Yeah.
All saying, I think Hurricane had its thunder stolen by Swarm.
The Swarm. Yeah,
that was at the.
She votes for fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah.
There you go.
Sense Around, created for Earthquake, 1974.
Yeah, and how appropriate was that?
Janet's commenting, saying, "Hey, I read that Roger Moore was the only Bond that knew martial arts." That's interesting. Good to know. And Warren saying, "A bomb? What you giving him a bomb for?" In reference to gold, frankincense, and
frankincense and myrrh.
Yeah. Come on, that's all right. It's all good.
Yeah.
Christian saying, no, he couldn't. They gave him lessons, but not even push-ups. Sorry.
if Moore knew the martial arts, what was he doing? Beating up all the karate guys in the Bond film, using his Western style fist fight techniques.
Linda wrote PKD. Awesome, Ross.
PKD. Oh, Philip K. Dick. For the win.
For the win.
I have to get in there with my acronyms there. PKD. What is that? Yeah.
It's all good.
John Steers. We didn't talk about him. The special effects.
No, go for it.
Okay. I think I will. There's another James Bond connection because he's the one that designed the Aston Martin.
Yes, that's right. He designed with the cars. Yes, I was pleasantly surprised to read about that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, he worked on a lot of the Bond movies. Won an Oscar, I think, for Thunderball, and he was part of the special effects crew for Star Wars. Oh, he figured a lot of the mechanical effects for Star Wars. He was the guy who was responsible for designing, or at least executing, the lightsabers and the droids. R2-D2 and C-3PO and the land speeder and the Death Star.
And what was his name again, Ross?
John Steers.
John Steers. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So he was part of that whole crew that won the effects Oscar for Star Wars, and he, worked on the dogfight with John Dykstra over the Death Star.
Yeah. At
the end of the film, and what else can I say about him? We mentioned his two Oscars. Roland Emmett. Roland Emmett was another interesting character. He was a comic artist, he as far as an illustrator, but he was also an artist who did this kind of kinetic sculpture, where parts moved and whatever. So all those inventions that Caractacus has at the beginning of the movie, where they're making the eggs and everything, he designed all of those, like Rube Goldberg style things were.
So creative.
Yeah. So it's fun that they got him to do that. And Ken Adam was the last guy, I guess, that we were talking about him before the show. Right. A production designer.
Huge.
Who worked on the James Bond movies and Kubrick movies, Dr. Strangelove and Barry Lyndon. In fact, he won an Oscar for Barry Lyndon and for his work on The Madness of King George, the Man, now I forgot the guy's name. The actor. Nigel Hawthorne was the Madness of King George. But anyway, that was his second actor for that. And he won a Lifetime Achievement Oscar also. He designed all 6 Chitties, the Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang cars. And I mentioned that the one that actually is roadworthy is owned by Peter Jackson now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Kubrick guy. Christian knows him as the Kubrick guy. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because Ken with the set that was in Doctor Strangelove, you could see that that's Ken Adams' work. It's just so vast and so big. I mean, it's just the style. I mean, his work was incredible in the earlier Bond movies.
It was interesting looking at you talk about the sets. It was interesting looking at this after having just watched Willy Wonka last year, the other Roald Dahl project, which again, he basically got kicked off of or he quit. He left. He didn't like the direction the film was taken, and it was picked up by who was the guy? David Seltzer was the screenwriter who stepped up and agreed to do it without screen credit. They wanted Roald Dahl's name on the poster, and all the advertising because they want to get people to come in to see the movie. And they agreed to finance one of his films if he didn't take credit for the screenwriting.
Wow.
But, this is like a whole parenthetical phrase here. I'm getting off topic, but I do want to mention that Seltzer is perhaps best known, at least for our having discussed it in the last few weeks. He was best known for writing the screenplay for The Omen. So he was the guy who wrote the screenplay finished the screenplay for Willy Wonka. But it is interesting watching. This is what I was trying to say. Watching Willy Wonka and Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang and Willy Wonka, so within a year of one another, seeing kind of the similarities with the candy factory and how they handled some of that.
Yeah, there's a lot. There are similarities with that. I definitely can see that.
Both biggest similarity is that both of them got yanked out of Roald Dahl's hands.
Excuse me. Just to let you know, Matt Anthony is in the house, folks. Welcome, Matt. He's saying, I'm hallucinating after a 13-hour Christmas Village shift, and I'm not going to read the rest, and I'm not going to highlight it. Welcome to the show, Matt. I'm in COVID fog, but not that much.
Yeah, he's Christian busting. Yeah.
But thanks for joining the show, Matt. I hope you're doing okay. Christian is saying, Ross Adams said that Kubrick drove him crazy. I don't remember on which one, though. And Warren is saying, I hear Peter Jackson has quite the original movie prop collection. Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier. And Janet's saying Stanley Kubrick, best ever. John is saying all this, but no talk. ND talk. I still decree Timothy Dalton is the greatest Bond. Hey, let me tell you something. I really like Dalton as Bond. One of my favorite James Bond films is License to Kill. And I thought he pretty much got shortchanged in 1989 with that film. Paul saying, my dear, could I interest you in seeing my chitties? Oh, boy. Martin is saying he also had a large collection of military equipment and uniforms. Interesting. But yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. A lot of good material here, Ross. Definitely covered a lot tonight with all of this. And Roy, you're talented. Dalton is a very good actor. Yeah.
Did I mention this on the air? Were we talking about Dalton last week or no? Or was this like I don't know? I'm like chatting to people all damn day. I have no idea what I'm saying anymore. But I was watching The Crown, and Dalton turns up on an episode of The Crown, and I thought, good God, is Timothy Dalton playing? Is he playing older? What's going on here that he's playing this character? Timothy Dalton's 76 years old.
He is, and it's crazy. Well, that's and it's interesting too because he was approached about playing James Bond, and I think he was only like 23 or 24, and he turned it down. And I think it was right around the time of and on His Majesty's Secret Service, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me. I'm not. But I think it was at that time, and he
turned it down earlier.
He turned it down because he just felt he was too immature for the role. But then time went by. Now Warren is jumping in there and saying Michael Billington, yes, from UFO should have been Bond. He was considered, and he actually had screen tested. Warren, you're absolutely right. And he was the villain that was in the 1977 film The Spy Who Loved Me. He was the lover of Triple X, who Moore's Bond winds up killing on the when he's in Austria on the skiing.
Right.
He turns around and he shoots him and then takes him out. So that was Michael Billington. But
there are all kinds of stories about everybody that was.
And Liz is saying Timothy Dalton played a Time Lord in Doctor Who. I think I remember hearing that. And she's saying I had such a fan crush on Timothy Dalton.
I think the Hague told me he's in the new Harrison. There it is. He's in the Yellowstone prequel with Harrison Ford. I'm glad you stepped up, Hague, because I would have been telling tales out of school since I haven't seen it.
Now this,
yep, it's the Mirror Universe, Roy. Absolutely. What did Paul say about Willis O'Brien's King Kong? Go back.
Let me go back here. He's saying, I'm really jealous that Jackson has Willis O'Brien's Stratonocaris model that was cut out of King Kong.
Yeah. As an extra on my King Kong DVD, they reconstruct or recreate the Spider Pit sequence, the notorious Spider Pit sequence that was lost because it was just too horrifying for audiences in 1933. It's where, the guys on the expedition there on Skull Island get shaken off the log by Kong, and he drops the log in. Well, some of those guys survive the fall, and they're devoured by horrifying insects. So they had to cut it out of the 33 version. But Jackson and his guys, because they have they have nothing to do those. It was at the time that they were making the King Kong movie, the remake. They reconstructed the Spider Pit sequence and shot it in black and white and put it as an extra on the DVD. So you could see everybody devoured by the insects.
The things that we missed.
Just the way Willis O'Brien envisioned it.
Yeah. Not left up to the imagination anymore.
That's right.
John's saying it was found in a famous Monsters magazine pic. Jackson redid it.
You have to have people devoured by oversized insects and Fay Wray in a diaphanous gown. See-through gown. Yeah. That's the 30s for you.
There you go.
All pre-code, Roy.
90 years ago.
Before the Hays Code.
Yeah. So I guess, folks, if you have any last minute comments you want to say about the film, please do so. We're going to start to wind down, but this was an interesting discussion. And like I said, I had never seen this movie from beginning to end, but prior to watching it this go around, like Ross was saying, but it definitely was a fun movie. It moralistic, held up, and scary. Different parts were definitely scary, especially if you were a kid. Excuse me.
And it was scary, and it was scary long.
Scary long. There you go.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, some comments coming in. Matt saying maybe the multiverse Martin cause he's looking mighty strange.
Okay, there you go. You got your Doctor Strange beard, Roy.
Yeah. Christian saying, about Michael Billington and Ed Bishop now. I mean, that was tragic. I think that June of 2005, that both of them died like within a week apart of each other. It was just so sad. Shari's saying, good show, guys. Sleep well and feel better, hubby. See you on Saturday. Thanks, hon. Whatchamacallit? And Christian is saying, I know, how weird. And Warren is saying, I'd love to see a show on classic horror flicks like Kong, Phantom, 1925, and Nosferatu, 1922. Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Sci-Fi.
Happy Sci-Fi.
I always want to do a spin-off called Pappy Sci-Fi, where I just do movies of the 20s and 30s. 20s, 30s, and 40s. Then Mike and Mary Beth can have all like the post 1990. You can have the middle, and then I can have the early ones. But I don't want to commit. I don't want to do that every week. I'll watch them on my own, but I don't want to have to talk about them. Unless Warren wants to be my co-host.
There you go.
On the next Pappy Sci-Fi.
Pappy Sci-Fi. Anyway, I'm going to go to the chat outs shortly. Actually, before we do, we're doing actually a new let me go to this. a new piece on the show, which is called "That's the Way It Was," and this is a tribute to legendary news reporter Walter Cronkite. Because in closing each episode, Walter Cronkite would say, "That's the way it was," or excuse me, he would say, "That's the way it is." And December 4th, 1980, and then he would sign off. So, with that said, this movie actually premiered on December 16th, 1968. So we are actually closing in on the 54th anniversary.
That's Beethoven's birthday.
Is it really, Ross?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of time.
Kodai. Yeah.
So with Chitty-Chitty-Bang-Bang, it premiered at the Odin Leicester Square Theatre, which I spelled incorrectly, in London. And that's a fact that took place. And also the number one song in the US, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Marvin Gaye. And then that was in the US. And then in the UK, the number one song was Lily the Pink by Scaffold. So just a couple tidbits of information out there that took place on that date, December 16th, 1968. Want to go to the shout outs. So we were just talking about Mike and Mary Beth. Mike and Mary Beth handle science fiction of the 1980s, 90s, and beyond. They talk about movies and television. They are on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They are going to be back this Wednesday, December 7th, and they will be talking about the 2022 film release. Now, this film actually came out or was being made in 2004. And then for whatever different reasons, it was actually held up. But it's called 5-25-77. And for most folks out there, that date is going to be is going to sound very familiar. And it's a coming of age film that talks essentially about one specific character that's growing up in that time frame. And it starts out in probably like around the 1970s. Around 1976, I think, is where it starts in the summer of 76, and then it just goes from there. And definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It was just released, and they're going to be discussing this film. This film really hits home a lot for myself personally. I actually just watched it the other night. Captain Phil, I was on Captain Phil's show Friday, and we were discussing it, and he had actually told Mike and Mary Beth about it, and he was surprised that I didn't know about it. They didn't know about it either. And I immediately watched it. So this brings back a lot of memories because it's about making movies, Super 8 films, as kids back in the day. And it's something that Ross and I used to do. That's Ross's cousin Joe used to do. And definitely this film is going to warrant another discussion. It's something that I'd definitely like to look at, as a show down the road. But anyway, Mike and Mary Beth will be covering this. It'll be this Wednesday, December 7th. So definitely tune into them for that. Next, I want to give a shout out to also other friends. My other friend, Bill Scorado from Countrygate Players, the owner of the theater. As we all know, the theaters have been affected because of COVID throughout the last couple of years. And Countrygate is back this month. Countrygate Players are going to be performing live, and you can enjoy the magic of the holidays if you are in the Belvedere, New Jersey area. And the dates are going to be Saturday, December 10th and 17th at 8 p.m. and Sunday, December 11th and 18th at 2 p.m. for the Sunday matinee. And you can visit the website at www.countrygate.org for ticket information and how to get to the theater. Also, Bill has a website. You can go to the website for updates of information that he's got planned. And that's at www.billscorado.com. And Bill is extremely creative and did a lot with the theater because there was only one show that was actually showed back in March. And he was able to come up with different scenarios. There was a film festival. It was a film noir film festival that was done in July. And then we also did in October. He had done a series of films celebrating Halloween month. And then closing it out, it was done with Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was kind of like a mystery science fiction 3000 and meets the Rocky Horror Players, only it was the Plan 9 from Outer Space Players. And definitely a lot of fun and different like projects like that. And then there's also going to be a murder mystery, a live murder mystery coming up in February, and it's going to be taking place. There's going to be 2 of them. One will be at Harker's Hollow, which is going to be in Harmony, New Jersey, and then also at the other venue, which will be at in Belvedere, New Jersey, and that will be at the Firehouse. So there'll be information about that. So please stay tuned. Next, I want to give a shout out to Captain Phil's Planet. I was just talking about Captain Phil. Captain Phil's Planet is WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York. And Captain Phil usually broadcasts, his schedule is on alternating Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And he's also on Friday nights from 9 to 11:30 p.m. He's actually going to be doing a fill-in tomorrow morning. And that's going to be Monday, December 5th at 9 a.m. And he's filling in for Mario. And he's going to be playing obscure blues and also doing some prog Christmas music. So you can definitely check out Captain Phil on WSB 90.1 FM Stony Brook. And also I want to give out a shout out to the ladies from Studio One Thrift. This is for the owners Snow and Martha. They actually just put this online business together about maybe 7 months ago, and it's flourishing nicely. And if you have an interest in checking out discounted merchandise, they showcase their lineup for all seasons, all year long. And you can go to their website, which is www.studio1thrift.com. Again, it's quality, stylish, affordable clothing for men and women. Definitely check it out, and they can ship anywhere. So just check out their website. And Ross, if you can let folks know what you've got planned and what's happening.
All right. Well, these are the 2 shows I've got on WWFM, the classical network. Picture Perfect's the movie music show, and that airs Saturday nights at 6, as indicated. Last night's show was dedicated to music of Nino Rota. That'll be posted as a webcast in the next day or 2, so you'll be able to catch that at wwfm.org when they get that up there. I did music from the Godfather movies and from some of the Fellini films and from Visconti's The Leopard. I thought it was an interesting show. Yesterday was Nino Rota's birthday. So you'll get to enjoy the show next Saturday. I don't know what I'm doing, but next Saturday at 6 at wwfm.org. Tonight on The Lost Chord, that's unusual and neglected classical repertoire. The focus will be on music of the cosmos, if you will. I figured I'd tie it in with the, we have all this stuff with the James Webb Space Telescope and Artemis 1 and the Orion spacecraft and so forth. So I've got 3 pieces that are associated with space. The first is by Joaquin Rodrigo, who's a 20th century Spanish composer, probably mostly remembered for his guitar music, but he wrote a piece in 1970 that he dedicated to NASA. And the piece is called In Search of the Beyond. So I'll be playing that. I'll be playing another piece by another Spanish composer, Enrique Granados, that he wrote in 1911. But the piece went lost for a century. It's called Song of the Stars. And then I've got a piece from 2002 by the Finnish composer Kaija Saariaho. And her opera, L'Amour de Leon, was just performed at the Met a couple of years ago. She was the first woman to have an opera performed at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City in over a century. So I have a work of hers called Orion, conveniently enough, since the spacecraft is Orion. And I'll round out the hour with that. It has both the mythological and astronomical significance, the piece. There are several movements, some of them mythological, some having to do with the heavens. So you can enjoy that tonight. The program's called Creating Space on the Lost Chord. That's tonight at 10. You can hear it at wwfm.org. And as I say, if you miss it, you can, catch it as a webcast in a few days. You can read more about it on my Facebook page if you like, at Classic Ross Amico. Thank you, Roy.
Awesome. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah.
And just to let everybody know, Ross and I will be back. Hopefully we're not going to have any more hiatuses anytime soon. And we will be back this coming Friday, which is going to be December 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will be doing episode number 172. And we're going to be doing the Avengers TV series episode entitled Too Many Christmas Trees, which debuted back in 1965. So we thought it would be appropriate to talk about this episode for the holidays. And of course, we all love the adventures of John Steed and Emma Peel. So that will be our discussion, and looking forward to it. And I've always been a fan of this show, and then especially as a kid growing up and everything. And I mean, you know, Mrs. Emma Peel, everybody, we definitely had a crush on Diana Rigg, and we share a birthday. She was born on July 20th, and I was born on July 20th, so I always thought that was cool.
Well, there you go. So don't go into it expecting Iron Man and the Hulk. John Steed and Emma Peel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I saw one of the last comments that Janet wrote. It's nice to connect to those I know. Be well. Love long, live long. Thanks for being out there, Janet. It's great to see you. I haven't seen Janet since it's almost been 3 years since the Space 1999 convention. So I'm glad that she was able to reconnect. But yeah, and there's a lot of other comments out there. So great to see everybody out there. Hoping everybody has a wonderful weekend. Well, what's left of it. The weekend is we were usually on Friday nights. Yeah, this is Sunday night. We hope everybody has a wonderful week. Any last words, Ross?
No, get well. Get well, damn it.
Yeah, I'm a little.
And lose the beard.
Lose the beard?
No, I kind of like it. Yeah, I think it is a little Doctor Strangey.
Somebody said I can play the Moss stuff from Doctor Who.
I should grow mine back now.
Uh-oh.
The challenge is on.
No. It's not a challenge. Matt, I want Roy to grow the beard until it looks like Ming.
There you go.
Forget it, Ming. Forget it, Matt. What was the quote? Forget it, Ming. Dale's with me.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. So anyway, everyone, take care. Have a safe week, and be careful, because it's getting scary out there again. A lot of people are seeming to get sick again. So just be careful, stay vaxxed, stay masked, and just be aware of your surroundings. Have a great week. And with the holidays coming and everything too. So live long and prosper, and we'll see you in 5 days.
There we go.
Take care.
Quick week. Yeah. Take care.
Bye, everyone.